Hello and welcome to the Dream Team Professor podcast. My name is Scott, and in this episode, we're looking at the top players to target in Gameweek 26 Sun Dream Team. Now, it's a double game week this week, but it's a small, boring double game week by comparison to what we've just had last week, I think, anyway. So the deadline is on Friday, 6:30 p.m., ahead of an FA Cup clash of Aston Villa versus Cardiff. Now, it's a double, but for only two teams this week, Manchester United and Aston Villa. So these two teams have both FA Cup at the weekend, followed by European competition in midweek. So they're the only two teams that double. There's not too much else to choose from this week if you want those extra fixtures. There are some FA Cup single game week teams that have quite nice fixtures. So you've got Man City, they're home to Plymouth. You've got Newcastle, who I've taken out of this episode. Not saying they're a one-man team, but we found out last night that Isak is injured. So he would have been the main guy I really would have been interested in for this week. So Newcastle are playing against Brighton at home, but assuming without Isak. You've got Crystal Palace, who are at home to Millwall, which looks a nice one. Palace playing really, really well at the moment. You've got Bournemouth, Wolves, Fulham, Brighton, Forest, and Ipswich all playing FA Cup singles this week. So if you took a punt on a non-European side last week and you're sitting on having Kulusevski, Kluivert at the moment, maybe Acuna, Matoma, these players could still be useful for these single game weeks in the FA Cup because these fixtures still do look quite nice, and it's getting later in the tournament. So a lot of these teams will be going stronger, and they don't have another Prem game to go with it. So plenty of time to rest and recover. So I still think some of your punts from last week still absolutely fine for this week. You've also got single game weeks for some of, or single fixtures for some of the European sides. So Arsenal are away at PSV. Now, all the European teams are playing away from home this week. So Arsenal away at PSV, Liverpool away at PSG, Spurs are away at AZ Alkmaar, and then Chelsea are away to Copenhagen, having their new squad as well. So Cole Palmer would be in the squad for that one. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then there's just a few teams that have a blank game week this week. So most notably, those of you that went for Brian Mbumo last week, he doesn't have a fixture this week. So you're going to want to take Mbumo out of your team. Unless you're planning to hold, you can do what you want, obviously, but you would remove him from your team. West Ham, Everton, Southampton, and Leicester all have a blank game week this week as well because they're not in Europe and because they're not in the FA Cup. So the fixture ticker on the screen is from ffstuff.co.uk. You can have a little look at this yourself. I'm going to look at fixture volume. So over the next 3 game weeks, we've got Man United have the most fixtures with 5. Now, this week, if you are playing the fixtures, the only real 2 teams, if you want to gain the advantage, are Man United and Aston Villa with that double. Aston Villa are a team, though, that have 4 fixtures across the next 3 game weeks. They're joined by Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, and Chelsea. So it's basically the teams that are still in Europe have the 4, and then Man United have the extra with the 5 because they're in the FA Cup. The reason Villa are on 4 when they're in Europe and still in the FA Cup is they have a blank in game week 28. So they won't have a fixture that game week. Teams with 3 fixtures: Man City, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Wolves, Fulham, Brighton, Forest, and Ipswich. And then teams with 2 fixtures, which is the teams with blanks and the Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace, the reason they're in there as well is because they also blank in game week 28. And of course, they're not in Europe. So Crystal Palace, just the 2 fixtures, which is a bit of a shame because they are looking really good. And their single fixtures are nice. Millwall at home in 26, Ipswich at home in 27, and then blank in 28. But then they're away at Southampton in 29. Now, in 29, it is showing as a single game week. But game week 29, the teams that win in the FA Cup this week will have an FA Cup fixture put into 29 as well. So that has the potential to be a double game week, and it could throw up some really nice double game weeks as well in 29. So if you are looking maybe at Palace and you think for sure they're going to beat Millwall, you could gain back a fixture in game week 29. So it could make it worthwhile holding in 28 potentially. Same with Aston Villa. But I think you're probably going to want to see how game week 26 goes before making that call. The reason also they blank in game week 28, so Aston Villa and Palace, is because they were scheduled to play the two Carabao Cup finalists in Liverpool and Newcastle. So in game week 28, Newcastle and Liverpool will play the Carabao Cup final, whereas the two teams that they were due to play will blank. Just a little more info on the fixtures. I mentioned that game week 29 will be a double game week for those that are in the FA Cup still. Before that, so after game week 28, we have an international break. It is back, the international break. We've gone a while now without having one, but it will be back after game week 28. So obviously there can be stuff that happens between 28 and 29 that again could affect your planning. So general thinking for this week. So again, remember, Friday deadline, 6:30, and I think it's the final Friday deadline now for a while, because we've had about 4 consecutive Fridays, which is a bit of a nightmare. Don't like the Friday deadlines, but general thinking, so you could target the more favorable FA Cup singles this week, but you are probably sacrificing longer term fixtures. So game week 27 doublers are European sides, so short term nicer fixtures, longer term you lose fixtures. But obviously, you can always hop from one to another. You can gain the fixtures by going for Man United and Aston Villa this week for their doubles, but you may not think that their options are as inspiring. And of course, there can always be rotation as well. So Aston Villa versus Cardiff, they've played a load of games at the minute. That Club Brugge fixture is going to be a real tough one. So maybe they do rotate in that one. You could go for game week 26 harder fixtures in the European sides. So Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs. You would say that their fixtures this week are quite a bit harder than those that play in the FA Cup. But then you do gain the extra fixture in 27. Maximum fixtures though, United, Villa, just the options are a little bit limited. Of course, you don't have to pick and choose this week. You can obviously just move between. So if you like the look of Palace this week for a single, you can go for it. If you like them for 27, you can stay. But of course, you could always move on to a European side and then get rid for the blanks if you're on Palace or Aston Villa. So speaking of Aston Villa, let's take a look at some of their options. So this week, they had the 2-1 win against Chelsea. I actually thought Chelsea were pretty good in that game, but Aston Villa came back in the second half to win the game. And then the 4-1 loss against Crystal Palace. Now, I mentioned Crystal Palace looking really, really good themselves. So quite an interesting one to watch that. But the fixture gains are for Villa this week. So double game week in 26, double game week in 27. So it makes them good for 2 game weeks. But then 28 is a complete blank. No fixture for them in 28. Now in 29, they could have a double if they beat Cardiff in the FA Cup, which you'd imagine is fairly likely. So are the fixtures beforehand and then potential double after worth maybe just holding through and making it worthwhile? Or would you want to get rid of all of your Villa for that single? I'm a bit worried about potentially loading up on too many Villa players. So I'm currently on Martinez in goal. I've also got Ollie Watkins. I know a lot of people are on Morgan Rogers as well. So I would be a little bit wary of it. But I do think there's ways you can get around it. So Martinez, will start off by talking about him first. Off at halftime in this Crystal Palace game. Disappointing in the game before that. He has really been poor for me since I bought in. And what makes it worse as well is that I had Raya for a couple of weeks. He was doing badly. He had a blank. And I think I took him out ahead of that blank. Didn't want to hold him through the blank. So started getting rid of my Arsenal players. And of course, after the blank, Raya then goes, I think he's had 2 clean sheets since and definitely outscored Martinez. So yeah, maybe it would have been worthwhile just holding on to him. He was pretty damaging on my budget, which is I think another reason why I did take him out. But yeah, probably would have been better off keeping hold of Raya. So what to do with Martinez? Now, all I've seen in injury updates is that he felt pain in training. and wasn't comfortable going into the game. He obviously played the first half of this Palace game and then decided either he didn't want it anymore after conceding that first goal, or of course he was feeling the pain and needed to get substituted off. So Olsen came on for the second half and probably saved Martinez from conceding a couple more goals as well, which was okay. But I think I'm just going to keep hold of him for now. He obviously is someone that I could consider taking out. But until we hear that he's definitely out or it's really serious, it could just be worth holding on to him. 2 fixtures, maybe Olsen plays the FA Cup game now, and maybe Martinez can still get Club Bruges. I think that probably will be how they try and think about it. But if it does end up being long term and they do announce it before that, then of course could be a sell. Probably would look at Allison, probably would look at Raya, or if looking cheaper, I think may consider dropping down to Vicario now. So Vicario is playing the Prem games for Spurs. And of course, he is going to play Europe as well. So I was worried that Kinski might play the Prem games, but Vicario has come straight back in. So he could be an alternative to Martinez. But of course, if he's back and we find out he's okay, I think I'd hold through this fixture period. And if I had no other fires, maybe I'd swap him out for the blank. But I don't think it's the end of the world if you just wanted to hold on to the keeper just for a single game week blank. So Morgan Rogers, I went against him, I think 2 weeks ago, and it actually went okay in that period. But this week, he did get his goal. He actually had a goal scored, which was ruled out. So it would have been a Watkins assist for that one, which I have Watkins, so I would have got a few points back. But that was completely ruled out. But then the pair combined again later in the game. So goal for Rogers, assist for Watkins. That's 13 points for the game week for Rogers, and at 86% ownership in the top 1K. That was a damaging one for my rank, which is a bit annoying, but I don't feel like you should really fear not having Morgan Rogers. That being said, he just always starts and plays the bulk of the games. Like this week, Emery had even said that he was an injury doubt going into this game against Crystal Palace. He was flagged on the game. I think he's one of the most transferred players out at the moment. But of course, I think people are going to amend that now they've seen him play. But yeah, just seems to play every game. And would you be that surprised now if he plays both Cardiff and Club Bruges? Probably not. I am expecting there to be quite a bit of rotation for that Cardiff game because they have got a lot of players that have played solid 90s for a while. Rogers, Tielemans, Watkins, they have to be a little bit careful with, and they have got other options. But yeah, I think Watkins and Rogers still really good options this week, taking the chance that they will play 2. If they don't play 2 this week, they'll definitely play 2 in Gameweek 27 with the Prem and Bruges second leg. Watkins, 2 goals, 1 assist in 4 games now since his injury. Like I said, assist in this one. Yeah, both great for the double. No complaints. I do think actually Watkins could be a captaincy contender for this game week. Now, we will talk about captaincy a little bit later, but there are only 2 teams that have a double this week. Obviously, Man United and Aston Villa. There's not much to choose from at Man United other than Bruno Fernandes. And if you had to pick the 2 best options from Aston Villa, it's probably Watkins or it's probably Rogers. So I do think both of those could be captaincy contenders. I would still lean towards Watkins. I know Rogers has been really good this season, but Watkins has just done it over a longer period, potentially still on pens as well. 13 goals, 12 assists for the season. Yuri Tielemans is also a nice option. If you're a regular listener, I flicked between. I had him earlier in the season. I've kind of wanted to bring him back in stages and haven't. And he's just been so consistent throughout the season. In a bit of a quieter spell recently, but then he's back on it again now. So 5, 6, 12, and 6 in his last 4. 90 minutes in all of them as well. Just very consistent. 44 bonus points is the most of any player on the game. He's currently 8th for tackles as well. So that's why he's not blanking, because he's consistently getting bonus, consistently getting tackles. And then on the, I'd say, rare occasion he gets an attacking return. He's had 9 this season. He really can hit big numbers. So I think Tielemans is a decent shout. Going to get a lot of questions about Rashford and Asensio, I think, this week. Marlon isn't in this conversation because he's not been included in the European squad. So I do think that Marlon is probably quite likely to play this Cardiff game because he can't play in Europe. But Asensio, Rashford, And I think Disasi was the other one that got included in the Europa squad. I think they're shouts, but I'm just unsure on their minutes. So Rashford, 3 assists in 5 games, but he's only had 1 start. Asensio, he's had 2 goals against Chelsea. He's had 2 starts since coming in. They've got a lot of options in those attacking positions, and Emery has been changing around that lineup up top quite a bit. Other than really Tielemans, Watkins, Rodgers, they do have opportunities to move players around there. So I do think, even though you are probably going to get Cardiff out of a Rashford or Asensio, I think the minutes are a little bit too risky for me to go for. On to Man United, who are the other double game week team this week. So they have Fulham at home in the FA Cup, and then Real Sociedad away in the Europa League. So maximum fixtures for Man United if you look across the next 3 game weeks. And of course, they'll have a double game week in 29 as well if they do beat Fulham in the FA Cup. Results, they've been a bit dodgy, haven't they, for United? They have got the win here, but looked like it was a bit of a painful watch looking at the highlights. So 3-2 to Man United against Ipswich. Do these extra fixtures make up for them being, in general, let's minus Bruno out of the conversation, pretty bad picks? There's not really anyone that fills me with confidence aside from Bruno Fernandes from United. So it is a tough one to look at. Bruno, obviously 16 points against Everton. Got his goal, had bonus, tackles. And then last night, 2 assists as well, 11 points. So he finished the week as the highest scoring player. And then I think he's going to be the top captain pick, really, for game week 26. He's had 10 goals, 13 assists for the season in really, really good form, Bruno Fernandes. But where do we look other than that? So you got Mazraoui. I think he had some fitness issues going off in the previous game and obviously was benched for this Ipswich match, but then had to come on after Dorgu got a red card. So maybe didn't get the rest that he possibly needed. He is in the top 10 defenders for just sheer volume of the things that he does. So, the games he plays. So bonus, tackles, he's still done okay, but he's not as exciting as some of the other options up there. Dorgu was actually going to be on my list as a potential option, but now since his red card, and it was a horrible tackle as well, he's got a 3-match ban, which includes the FA Cup and the Premier League matches. So he's not going to be an option anymore. We have had goals for Maguire and De Ligt here, an assist for Dalot, but I just can't do it. They've got options at the back. They do swap around a fair bit, so I don't think I'll be going for United defenders. Onana could easily have been an option as well with this amount of fixtures, no blanks, the most amount of doubles. You've got Bayindir currently injured. Again, watching yesterday, just coming flying out of his goal. Every game would be just a horrible watch, I think, to have Onana in goal. So I'll be avoiding that one. And I just don't think any of the attackers are pickable at the minute. You had Garnacho start off after 45 minutes. Xerxes and Højlund, both not really contributing anything. So other than Bruno, maybe Mazraoui, uninspired. Let me know if you feel differently and you think there are some better options at United that could be considered. But I'm definitely not feeling it myself. Let's look at City. So the appeal for City is obviously that FA Cup fixture at home to Plymouth. Plymouth that knocked out Liverpool, albeit a rotated Liverpool. I'm expecting a pretty strong lineup for this. It's just a single game week for them, obviously out of Europe. So it will just be single games in FA Cup and the Premier League. I just don't know what they're going to do with the lineup. I imagine it's going to be strong because it's the last trophy they've got left to win. Obviously, they need to do well in the league still to get their European spot, but I think they'll be fine for that. So I do think they're going to go relatively strong. Haaland missed the Liverpool game, and this is just one of those horrible ones again where if you took him out, you've been unlucky. If you kept him in or took him out, you just guessed basically, do you think he'll be fit or not? Didn't play Liverpool, was sat in the stands, not even on the bench. And then all of a sudden he's back playing Spurs, playing 90 minutes, scoring, getting 11 points. Really, I think he should have had a second goal as well. It got ruled out by VAR, and I'm pretty sure it hit Archie Gray's arm first, and then hit Danso's both of his arms, and somehow Haaland's given away or been ruled out for using his own arm, which I didn't see it touch, to be honest. So yeah, maybe he was a little bit lucky there that it didn't end up worse. But yeah, I just don't know what happened with Haaland. Seems like he's fully fit. If he was an injury doubt, I imagine he would have gone off after 70 or something, and not Marmoush, and not the other four subs that happened mid-game. So yeah, I really don't know. If you took Haaland out, I probably would want him back for Plymouth. I don't want to be taking that risk that he ends up starting against Plymouth. And after that last match in the FA Cup where they kind of scraped by Leyton Orient, I think they're going to just want to get it done, go a bit stronger. It's at home this time as well. I don't want to be taking a risk of no Haaland for that game. So I still think Haaland's a buy if you haven't got him. Foden, I don't really know what to do with. So he was benched for this Spurs game. I think he had his last benching was about 5 games ago. So could just be a rest. But does this now mean that Foden is guaranteed to start Plymouth? There's no guarantees, but I'd imagine it's likely now. 5 points against Liverpool, but just, was it 1 point here off the bench against Spurs? Not great. His last goal was 9 games ago. So there are questions popping up around Foden at the minute. He's had 1 assist in that time as well. So he's not been setting the world alight. I do think that he could be a consideration for me to sell, but after Plymouth, because I just don't want to take that chance that he starts Plymouth, they go full strength, Haaland's firing, and we know that Foden has got a high ceiling. So longer term, I think I will look to potentially move Foden out now, but probably not yet. Doku is the only other player that maybe could be of interest. So delivered bonus as usual, 3 bonus points against Spurs, starting that one. And he started the previous game as well against Liverpool, hitting 18 ppm, taking on Trent God knows how many times. In this Spurs game as well, he actually seemed to sort his crossing out. He never seems to be able to get that end product, but obviously set up Haaland and had almost another chance to assist Savinho, I think it was. So yeah, Doku looked decent, but can you guarantee that he's now going to start the next one? No. So I think the general feeling around City for me is I'd hold my City players if I had them, with the hope that they get Plymouth. Just take the chance. But then if I didn't have them already, I think Haaland would be the only one that I specifically bought in for this week, just to protect in case he does go off. Let's look at my team, Arsenal, and I'm going to keep it short because it's not been a good week, has it? So a shock defeat to West Ham, a 1-0 defeat, looking pretty toothless without any attackers. I mentioned on the Dream Team Tonic podcast on the last episode. Obviously, it was all fun and games when Marino scoring a brace off the bench. It was fun. But then when he's starting the next 2 as your centre forward and he's not doing anything, obviously the joke is over, isn't it? It doesn't become as fun. That's when you kind of want a striker up there to do the business, and we just don't have one at the minute. And we were toothless again against Forest last night. So over 2 games, a double game week, no goals whatsoever for Arsenal. And now not feeling that great about PSV away in a single game week. PSV beat Juve 3-1 in the last round, winning 4-3 on aggregate. So it's not going to be an easy game, but you would expect Arsenal still to win it. I've got no interest in the attack going forward. I know people went for Nwaneri after Leicester, and he did look good. He almost got 3 bonus points yesterday against Forest, just 7 ppm. But I just can't see where the goals are coming from for Arsenal at the minute. And if we are scoring or winning the game, I could just see it being a 1-0 at the moment. So I'm not interested in any of our attackers at the moment. That might change after the international break when Saka could be back or Martinelli could be back. But for now, the only thing looks like it could happen for us is that we're going to score from set pieces. So Gabriel still is of interest. I still think he's a great option. And Raya, great option in goal. Raya's been getting bonus points recently as well. So I still think clean sheet potential. Arsenal looks solid at the back. But Attacking, not so much. So Raya is the highest scoring keeper on the game, 15 clean sheets. He's got more than double Martinez in second. So Martinez, 7 clean sheets. Raya, 15 clean sheets. So Raya probably looking like the best option in goal. And then you've got Timber as well, 10 points, 6 tackles this week. So obviously that will look appealing. I would just be a little bit careful potentially because Ben White has been getting minutes now off the bench, building up his game time. We've had both Calafiori playing at left back, and I must admit, over the last few games, hasn't looked very convincing. We've had Miles Lewis Skelly, of course, who got the red card in the last game as well. So I wouldn't be surprised with the left back position looking a little bit sketchy at the moment that maybe Timber could play left back, White goes to right back, but of course it could go the other way. Timber could potentially end up getting a rest with those other left back options. So I just feel like if you went for Gabriel, it's just a little bit more secure than going Timber at the minute. Let's look at Liverpool. So a great week for them and 2 clean sheets this week. I've just mentioned Gabriel. I'll come on to my team update in a minute, but I did not see Liverpool keeping 2 clean sheets this week. So against City and against Newcastle, away at City and at home to Newcastle. But of course, no Haaland for City and no Isak against Newcastle. If I had known that, I would have kept Virgil van Dijk this week and not swapped him for Gabriel. Unreal. Do you know when... I mean, they've been fantastic this season. They're going to win the league. Arsenal haven't been good enough to push them all the way, but things like that do surely make you feel like it's your year when you've got City and no Haaland, Newcastle, no Isak. 2 players that when we've played against these 2 teams have absolutely torn us apart. So I feel like if you do have or did have the defenders, I feel like you were a tad fortunate this week. I had just the one in Trent, but I took out Virgil. So a little bit of sour grapes on my part, but yeah, I looked at this City, Newcastle, and then PSG away this week. There's 3 really tough fixtures. Who will PSG have missing? Is Dembele going to be missing? They're going to get rid of their key attackers. Kvaratskhelia, maybe he'll have the day off. Let him get another clean sheet. Let's see. But lovely double game week in game week 27 after PSG. Southampton at home, PSG at home. That does look like a nice double. Now, depending on how the result goes in the Champions League in the first leg, maybe we could see rotation in the Southampton game. There's also, after the PSG game, the Newcastle Cup final. So quick turnarounds between these games, but I think they'll be all right. Salah, let's talk Salah first. 8 points for an assist last night. Almost a relief, I think. Obviously, that's a great return. But for those of us that went against the Salah captaincy this week, the first match was very, very painful. A goal and an assist against Manchester City. Tackles, big chance created as well, and even a bonus point in that first game. And then you were just watching this game after, specifically Palmer blanking. You were watching this game thinking, please don't go off. And it wasn't until quite late in the game that he got that assist. I feel like it could have been worse. So a little bit of relief from the second game, but overall, a harsh lesson learned going against Mohamed Salah. So 16 points against City, 24-point game week. He's now on 30 goals, 22 assists. So if you went for the Salah cap, you nailed it this week. Szoboszlai, 3 attacking returns this game week. Could be another option. In that first game, they did something strange where Szoboszlai and I think it was Curtis Jones were like can you have 2 false nines? 2 false nines, two attackers, both sort of pushing from the front, but obviously dropping into midfield as well. Quite interesting. And Szoboszlai, while he didn't play the exact same position in the second game, was still getting in really, really attacking positions with those runs in behind. So Szoboszlai is looking like a decent option. 3 attacking returns this game week. 25 points, 2 goals, 1 assist. So could be another shout. 7 goals, 9 assists for the season. So not amazing, but recent form has definitely been good for him. He has had, if you look previously, he has had quite a few 3-pointers and 4-pointers. but sometimes these streaks happen, don't they? So he does look like a good shout. Back-to-back clean sheets for the defence. Again, I mentioned it. I do feel like this week was probably quite fortunate and one that might not happen again very regularly. But I mean, in Gameweek 26, PSG away, I'm not expecting one. The 27, Southampton home, you'd say that's a clean sheet fixture. PSG at home, I wouldn't think so, but could be. And then Newcastle Carabao Cup in 28. Now, if they haven't got Isak again, yeah, probably another clean sheet. So yeah, you're going to hold your Liverpool defenders, aren't you? So not necessarily thinking buy, but definitely hold what you've got. If you haven't got Trent, I still think get Trent. Still a buy. I think he's had 8+ in his last 4 matches now. So high scoring defender in the game. Definitely buy Trent still. Getting early subs as well. Where I mean, normally Conor Bradley was taking minutes off him, but today, yesterday he went off for Kwanzaa. Banked the clean sheet. So if that keeps happening, you're laughing. If you've enjoyed this episode so far, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I'm on 3,912 subscribers at the time of recording. And I'm trying to make it to 4,000 by the end of the season. So if you're not subscribed already and you want to get kept up to date with all the latest Dream Team content, just hit that subscribe button. And then I want to share with you another exciting announcement. So as you well know, I'm a co-host on the Dream Team Tonic podcast. We've got a Discord, Patreon, YouTube community of over 100 members, going strong, and we're doing a meetup this season for those members, but we're going to extend it to everyone, so everyone is welcome to come and join us for the meetup. So we're going to go off to Leeds in April, the 5th of April. We're heading to Leeds, and we're going to just have a few drinks at a sports bar, watch the games. I'm not sure which games are live at the moment, but we're going to watch a bit of the football together, chat all things Dream Team, just a big social, to be honest. And then I think we're going to probably try and book a few events as well throughout the day, depending on who's coming and who's not. So if you are interested in coming along to the meetup, if you're shy, bring a mate, do whatever. Anyone's welcome. Just either drop a message on or comment on this video. Let us know if you're interested in going, or go over to Twitter or X, whatever they call it now. Message me on @DreamTeamProfessor or Dream Team Tonic, and just let us know if you're interested, because depending on the numbers, we'll book a bigger area, that kind of thing. So just want to know if you're interested in joining us in Leeds, 5th of April. Let me know in the comments or get in touch. Be good to have you there. Right, quick look at Spurs, and I was not happy with Spurs this week. So not happy in general with this week, actually, to be honest. But we'll save that for the end of the episode. So Spurs this week, 4-1 win against Ipswich and a 1-0 loss to City. Of course, in that first match against Ipswich, a lot of us were disappointed to see that Pedro Porro was benched. I think it was Spence and Udogie is back. Now, Spence has been really, really good, performing really well recently. So not too surprised to see that. I was more surprised that Udogie was straight back in, to be honest. I just didn't expect Porro to be benched, and benched for the game that you probably wanted him most in. So that was a little bit frustrating. And then in the second match against Man City, big clash in the Premier League. Both Son and Kulusevski rested. I wasn't that fussed about Son, to be fair, but I think people would have been. But Kulusevski was an annoying one as well. So I had to look back. Kulusevski has started, I think, 5 matches in a row. So he was due a rest. He's played so many minutes. But yeah, just felt wrong to rest Son and Kulu ahead of City and line up with a front three of Odebear, Tell, and Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson actually did really well in the Ipswich game, but you know what I mean. They're resting your key players for this game seemed a bit odd, but I think that's made it clear that the focus is probably not so much the Premier League anymore. Maybe they've decided there's not so much to play for in the Prem, and Europe is now going to be the focus with that AZ Alkmaar game away in Gameweek 26. So just a little bit wary of going for Spurs players now, that there could be a lot of rotation. And I don't blame Ange, because they've had so many injuries this season. They are going to want to try and rotate as much as they can, keep everyone fit and healthy so that they can probably go the distance in Europe. But for Dream Team, we don't like the rotation. So let's talk about Porro first. So benched in that first game, and then played the second. He did come off the bench, but played the second and done what Porro does. 1-0 loss, 7 points, free bonus, 10 ppm. Smashed it, even in a 1-0 loss. So that's why we like Porro, and I'd still pick Porro. But just be wary, there could be benchings now and again. I don't particularly think he's been playing particularly well, especially defensively. But he just does the points on Dream Team, so just keep picking him, I think. I do expect they will go full strength for all of the European fixtures. So AZ Alkmaar next week, I think will be fine. Be interesting to know what they do in Gameweek 27, though. Bournemouth home, AZ at home. Do they rest players for Bournemouth now? Let me know what you think. If we've got any Spurs fans listening, is it going to be a case of just rotating in the Prem and going full strength in Europe? Now, this rotation is a concern for me when it comes to Kulusevski. It's probably same scenario. It was a rare benching, so maybe don't be too dramatic about it. He got his 11 points and a really nice goal against Ipswich. But if he is going to keep getting rotated, I do think he could be on the chopping block for me, especially when we've got players from, say, Villa, like Rodgers, who are nailed and will play every game. They've dropped off a little bit from where they want to be in the Prem, and they are still trying to get Europe. So, yeah, I'm a little bit worried about Kulusevski. If Raya and Allison are out of reach for your goalkeeper spots, I do think potentially Vicario 3.7 could be an option. Like me, if you've got Martinez and you're looking to move him on, maybe you can't afford a Raya or you don't want to spend the money on a Raya or Allison. Vicario 3.7, it's not that far from Martinez price. He does get bonus points, gets plenty of saves because they're always conceding chances. So it could be an option. Not quite the nice price of Kinski, but still a decent shout. Let's look at Palace. Now I'm going to speed through a few of these because I do feel like the general feeling with some of these players that have the singles in the FA Cup is that if you bought them in the previous week, you're probably going to end up keeping them. But I'm not 100% certain that you're going to specifically want to bring them in. Palace is an exceptional scenario. So they're playing really, really well. 2-0 win against Fulham, 4-1 win against Villa. But they do just have the two fixtures where someone like United has 5 and quite a lot of other teams have 4. So let's have a look. Munoz, goal against Fulham, assist against Villa, 18 points. Absolutely flying. Now, I think it was a couple of episodes ago where I was considering, would you rather just have him or would you rather just go for like a Gabriel or Virgil van Dijk? They've both done pretty well, but you would have liked to have had Munoz for this run, I think. He's been fantastic. So 5 attacking returns in his last 6 games. So 3 assists, 2 goals. 4 goals, 6 assists for the season. He's got the highest average points out of the defenders behind Trent Alexander-Arnold. So really, really good shout. It's just, I'd love him for Millwall in a single. I'd love him for Ipswich, home in a single. But then do you sell him or hold him for 28? You'd probably sell him. But then if he has Southampton and in an FA Cup game after that, it's kind of like, do you just hold him? But you are losing fixtures on some of the European sides. So it's just whether or not you think he's going to outscore those European doublers in these singlers and be worth holding through the blank. It's a tough call because he is doing so well. And I think he's only blanked a few times this season. So, yeah, let me know what you think you're going to do with Munoz. It is tempting even with this small amount of fixtures. So that is showing how good he's been. If you've got Munoz, I'm sure you're going to be keeping him for this. Mateta, 4 goals in his last 5. It's incredible. Again, just smashes them home, doesn't he? So 11 points in that last match. He got a goal disallowed against Fulham, but still a come away with 17 points for the game week. And he's on 15 goals now for the season. So another good shout. Not seen him in that many teams, actually, Mateta. Eze is back fit. Now, we love Eze in an FA Cup week, and he's actually getting the minutes now. 89 minutes in the previous game, 90 minutes in the game before that. Got an assist and 9 points, free bonus, 17 points for the game week. He didn't play in the last FA Cup match, but he was only just coming back from injury at that point. So I do think Eze is a nice shout in midfield. If you're willing to just accept that this week is a single and the following week is a single. So that is just the decision with Crystal Palace, isn't it? So do you go for these 2 tempting singles and then decide what to do in the double? Or do you just go for a double game week player this week and maybe an Aston Villa who gets a double in game week 27? It is a tough call. I always would lean towards getting the extra fixtures, though, I think. Wolves, 1-0 win against Bournemouth, 2-1 loss against Fulham. So the recent performances have actually improved and the fixtures do look good going forward. So it's Bournemouth FA Cup, Everton single in the Prem in 27, 28 they're away at Southampton, and then in 29 it's home to West Ham. So just singles, but they are nice singles and they are looking a bit better. So Cunha, goal, 10 points against Bournemouth. See a lot of people bring him in this week. Got no attacking returns in this Fulham game, but still came away with 6 points because he just does everything else, doesn't he? Really close to 3 bonus points, 7 ppm. Gets the tackle points as well. So yeah, I still think he's a decent shout. 3 shots on target in this match too without scoring. 14 goals, 4 assists for the season, and 21 bonus points is really high for a striker. So I still think if you're on Cunha, you'd hold him for this week. Ait Nouri is interesting. I feel like it's maybe a cheaper version than Munoz. He's definitely not as good as Munoz, but he could be a decent shout for this run. He didn't play in the last FA Cup game, which I can't find the reason why. But he has been doing quite well. So he got the 10-point clean against Bournemouth with bonus 4 tackles, and then 6 points with no clean sheet against Fulham. Bonus 5 tackles. He's on 4 goals, 5 assists for the season. So getting those attacking returns and 23 bonus points is good as well. So could be another option as a bit of a differential in defence, but of course won't get the extra games. Let's look at Brighton. So 4 wins in a row now. So they're 2 wins against Chelsea, 4-0 against Southampton, and then 2-1 against Bournemouth. So tougher run coming, but there is a potential for game week 29 to be a double if they beat Newcastle in the FA Cup, which on current form, they could do. So I think, again, if you've got Brighton players, you probably do end up keeping hold of them. I do think this fixture is probably a bit harder than if you're looking at, say, Wolves, or if you're looking at keeping a Palace player, for example. I think João Pedro, he's done really well in both games, hasn't he, this week? A goal in both and an assist in that first game as well. 1 goal from the penalty spot, but the other goal was a nice little chip over the keeper. But Danny Welbeck is back, so they are going to start taking minutes off each other again. So I probably wouldn't go for Pedro. Matoma, Minte, people, I see quite a few go for them. Minte was unlucky. He sat the keeper down. He should easily have scored that one, but didn't. And then Matoma scored in the first game, but then hit the post in the second. So I think you were maybe a little bit hard done by if you went Matoma, but he was still a decent shout this week. So I think if you've got them, maybe you keep them. But again, it's like Palace, you could go and try and get the extra fixtures from Aston Villa. Bournemouth, so 2 losses this week, which was a surprise. 1-0 against Wolves, but they did get the early red. And then 2-1 against Brighton. So Cliver is the guy that done it this week. So 15 points against Brighton with that absolute worldy goal. Like, we've been missing those goals from football, especially as an Arsenal fan. Like, you don't ever see any Arsenal players just rocket it from that far out. So we could do with that at the moment. Maximum bonus, 18 ppm for him. Tackles, that's his 13th goal of the season, 6 assists. So well played if you went for Cliver. I would be keeping him for Wolves at home. They have got players returning, which could lead to potential rotation. So Tavernier recently back. You've got Evan Nilsson coming off the bench. So that's probably going to take minutes off of Dango. But of course, Dango can play other positions as well. So it could have a knock-on effect. But after 2 defeats, including Wolves, maybe they want to go strong again and try overturn that defeat and go as far as possible in the FA Cup. So I still think probably we're going to see 2 very strong lineups. I'd hold Cliver. If you've got Semenyo, I'd probably hold him as well, unless you really did want to chase those Aston Villa doubles. Let's look at Chelsea. So a painful week for those of us that went for Cole Palmer as our captains. Maybe it wasn't so bad as just a general pick to have in your team, but you definitely expected more from this game week. So a 2-1 loss against Villa. But I do think they looked improved in that game, especially with Pedro Neto playing through the middle. And then a 4-0 win against Southampton, which I think is what people expected and what people were gunning for when they went for a Palmer captaincy, or even just bringing Palmer in. Copenhagen, single game week in Game Week 26, away from home. Now, Parma is eligible for that game. We're just guessing whether or not we think he'll play. I've already seen guys in the comments, some saying that they think he'll play, some saying they don't think he'll play. I do think he's going to play this game. He's struggling with a little bit of confidence at the moment, isn't he? So I feel like they are going to want to get him firing again. And I do think that Copenhagen is one of the tougher games that they will face in this run into the final. So away from home, I think they're going to need Palmer. I don't think they can afford to rotate too heavily in this game. So I think that he'll play. Game week 27 is a double. Leicester at home, Copenhagen away. Now, no matter how disappointed you were with Palmer, I still think I'm going to want him for that double. But after that, 28 and 29, Arsenal away, Spurs at home, I would potentially look to move off Chelsea players at that point. So Palmer, second most popular captain this week with 18.8% in the top 1K. Salah was, of course, 75% capped. Palmer only got the 12 points across the two games, whereas Salah got 24 points on his own. So, yeah, big swing in the captaincy battle this week. He had 4 shots on target, 2 bonus, and a big chance in each game, but missed them. It just didn't look like Palmer. There was one against Aston Villa where he was through against Martinez. I think he could have dinked him, but he looked like he just slipped a little bit. And I thought, oh, that's unlucky, just a little slip. But I feel like the same thing happened against Southampton as well. There was a few chances that he had where he kind of looked like he either stumbled, his footing was wrong. He can't just keep slipping. So unless he's got some dodgy boots, I think it's a confidence thing, isn't it? Because they're chances that he would normally be slotting away. So yeah, disappointing one, but I would still be holding through 26 and 27. I was obviously looking at the captaincy swings. Obviously, Palmer 12 points, Salah 24. It was obviously 36 combined. If you went for the Palmer cap, 24 points plus Salah non-cap, that's 48. And then Palmer not captained was 12 versus Salah captain 48. So 60 points versus 48, a 12-point gain if you went the Salah cap. So yeah, Salah, don't mess with him unless maybe it's a single. Netto 2.8 million. So if you went for another couple of these attackers from Chelsea, I don't know. Maybe some went for Neto, but I just didn't see this happening, to be fair. Playing in that attacking striker role, but obviously drifted out wide at times. 21 points this game week. Got an assist against Villa and a goal and an assist against Southampton. Taking corners and free kicks was the main one that shocked me because Palmer normally takes a lot of these. Enzo takes them at times, depending what foot. But Neto taking the left-footed set pieces as well, I found really strange. So one in particular, the Neto assist for, was it Colwill? Was a free kick that you saw Palmer take so many times. Neto takes it, swings it in, goal. I mean, surely that should have been Palmer's. But yeah, and Neto in this form, he could be a shout for this game week against Copenhagen, and then the double in 27. As could Nkunku, so 17 points this game week, playing left wing. Thought he was quiet against Aston Villa, to be honest. It was okay in phases against Southampton, but still came with a goal and an assist. 12 goals, 5 assists for the season for Nkunku. So I don't see why they're not going to continue playing with all 3 of these. Sancho did come in for the second one, but I guess that depends on how they line up elsewhere in the team. So Neto, I think, would be the eye test punt. Nkunku's fine, done okay, but I don't think he looked as good as Neto. And I'd still keep Palmer. I think on another day, Palmer could have put those chances away. And it's not like Nkunku and Neto have been particularly prolific as it this season, but they've both come away with decent hauls this week. So I do feel like this probably was a little bit unlucky with Palmer. I'm not going to spend long on captaincy and boosters this week because I just don't think it's a great week for it, to be honest. There's a lot of teams with single game weeks, just the 2 teams doubling. I don't really feel like this is a great week to play boosters. Game 27 could be okay. Looking at some of those fixtures, some of those doubles, there are some good ones there. So we'll have a chat about it next week. Or if you do see any double game weeks for next week you like the look of, maybe Southampton and PSG. Chelsea, Copenhagen. There are some good combos there. Maybe if you have got goal bonus left or want to take a punt on the captaincy, you could go max cap. But overall, I just don't like the look of 26 for boosters. So not going to spend any time talking boosters for 26. Captaincy, I think you have got to go for the doublers. Now, I know there's nothing wrong, is there, with sticking the armband on Salah week in, week out. It's not going to let you down many times. But I still just think away at PSG, obviously we know that he's capable. We know that at this point of the season. 30 goals or whatever he's on now. But I feel like you have to still try and back the doublers. And you know that Bruno is going to start both Fulham at home, Sociedad away. And he rarely does get a complete blank. Even in games where he's not getting an attacking return, sometimes he's coming away with like 9 points. So I think Bruno Fernandes, standout captaincy option for this week. I do still think there is potential for Ollie Watkins or Morgan Rogers potentially. Now, if you see an early team leak or something, because it is a Friday deadline and they're the game at 8 p.m. If you do see a leak that Watkins is starting, Rogers is starting, I do think it's tempting to go for one of those as a differential. But I think that Bruno is probably the safer play to go this week. So that's how I feel about the captaincy. On to my team update then. So it's been a painful week, or painful couple of weeks, really. So I've been in and around between sort of 50th and 80th and 20th at times, just hovering around that point. Started the week at 55th this week. Recovered some points back from going for that Marmouche punt against Leyton Orient. Didn't pay off that week. Obviously scored the hat-trick the week after. So going against the captaincy that week really did punish me, with Salah and Haaland both going off in difficult games. And Marmouche obviously doing nothing against Leyton Orient. Clawed some of that back to get to sort of around 55th. And I felt like this week was another opportunity to go different on the captaincy. So this week I did go for Cole Palmer in for Luis Diaz, but I gave him the armband as well. And obviously I've just spoken about how that went. So 12 points advantage if you did go for Salah this week. But yeah, I don't regret doing it. Obviously, it's easy to say, yeah, he's got less points. I would have liked the guy with more points. But I just wanted to take a few more risks over the last few game weeks to try and at least take have a real go at getting a top finish. Now, it's backfired this week pretty dramatically, not because of just the captaincy, but because of some of the other picks elsewhere. I've gone from 55th on the overall leaderboard all the way to 120th yesterday. So a real painful game week, this one. But do I regret it? I don't think so. My transfers this week were Cole Palmer in for Luis Diaz. Now, Diaz, who was doing nothing for ages, has come away with 11 points this week. So he's had a good game week, started both games again. So Gakpo probably not at full fitness yet. So yeah, not real any gain there, 1 point. But the one that really did annoy me was this Virgil van Dijk to Gabriel. So I didn't really know what to do with the second transfer with my team this week. And I just looked and I thought Arsenal, Forest away, probably going to be a pretty defensive game, which was 0-0, clean sheet. And then the West Ham game at home at Arsenal, I thought that had clean sheet potential for Arsenal as well. But it wasn't. 1-0 defeat in that one. So just a 10 points for Gabriel. And then Virgil van Dijk against City and Newcastle without Haaland, without Isak, comes away with 2 clean sheets. So I'm putting that one down to unlucky. I don't feel like that was a bad decision at all. The 4 weeks that I had Virgil before that, he blanked 4 in a row against teams of a lot lower standard than City and Newcastle. So I'm going to put that one down to bad luck. But the other things that have sort of punished me this week, Morgan Rogers, I got away with not owning the week before, but this week, that goal really did damage my rank when you're watching live. I think the double Liverpool defence probably cost me, the people that had Trent with Virgil van Dijk. Brian Mbumo done really, really well this week. So well played if you went for him. The most transferred in player this week. So I see a few people 12th man him as well. Went really, really well. I think they were the main rank killers. And of course, the goalkeeper spot as well. So Martinez going off at halftime and not having a very good result in the first one. A lot of people on Allison, a lot of people on Raya, both doing the business this week. So lost out there. Kulusevski, Foden, and Porro all getting benchings as well. So in a double game week, I feel like if you went for those double game week players that aren't in Europe, most of them went full strength in both games. So you got the two fixtures out of all of them, like Clivert, for example, like a Cunha, like an Abumo, whereas Kudu, Foden, Porro, they eventually got their benchings, didn't they? So not been the best week. Martinez, 6 points in goal. Gabriel, 10. Porro, 8. Trent, 16. Doesn't even look bad, does it? But when there was weeks where the guy Munoz smashing it, and a lot of people had a lot of Liverpool, a lot of Arsenal have come out on top from the defence. Palmer, obviously, we've spoken about that. The captaincy didn't go well, but I'm going to keep him, I think, for the European fixture. Kulu, 12, goal in the first one, but just the 1 point in the second. Bruno Fernandes, 27 points is insane. So really, really good result from him. Foden, 6 points, disappointing. Watkins with the 10, I think that's fine. Haaland, 11, only playing in the one match. And then Salah, inevitable Salah Hall, 24 points. So what am I thinking roughly for this week? Now, I don't feel like the back line particularly needs tweaking. Obviously, I could get annoyed and bring Virgil van Dijk back in, but do I actually think Virgil van Dijk away at PSG is a great option? Not really. So I think Porro, Trent, Gabriel is a fine back three, isn't it? Martinez is going to be the question mark. So I'm going to have to wait for the press conferences and try and find out if we know Martinez is going to start the FA Cup or Bruges. Feel like my gut feeling is he might miss the FA Cup and then come in for the second game. But yeah, I'm going to have to wait and see. I don't think it's a really high priority to try and fix it when he has got a potential 2 games. But yeah, there's not much else I feel like I want to do this week. Palmer, Copenhagen away. Obviously, I'm going to take the chance that he's going to play that because I think I'm going to want him for the week after. Kulusevski, single game week away to AZ Alkmaar. Now, I feel like there could be temptation to maybe move him on this week for an extra Villa player, but then that is putting me on to 3 Villa players, which is fine for this week. It's fine for the week after. But then that blank in game week 28, I'd have to decide what to do, whether or not I slowly move off them again, or do I take 2 out by that point and then leave like a Martinez in there or someone to blank? That would have to be the decision. But I think that decision will be made easier if we know that they are going to go through in the FA Cup. Bruno stays, and I'm pretty sure that I will captain him for Fulham at home and Sociedad away, unless that temptation creeps in to go for Watkins if we find out that he's starting both. But yeah, it's been a few scary weeks going against the grain for captaincy, and neither have paid off either. So maybe it could just be a week to go with the crowd. Plymouth home for Foden. I think he's going to start it. So I think I'm going to keep him this week and then make a decision later because he hasn't been good. The attacking returns haven't been coming. So I think he could be a move quite soon. I think my front three, nothing really needs to change there. I've got the extra fixture out of Watkins. I've got Haaland potentially against Plymouth and Salah. So yeah, I feel like it's a pretty boring week. The only real tweaks I think that could pop up is maybe swapping my keeper and then maybe Kulusevski to a Aston Villa player. Now, I could either join the crowd and go for Rodgers or could go for Tielemans, try and get those slow and steady points from Tielemans and try and go a little bit differential. But yeah, I don't think either is really, really exciting. So could easily just roll and get another free transfers, but I just don't like the thought of burning one. So that's my rough thoughts. As always, if you have any questions, pop them in the comments below. And again, get in touch if you fancy coming to our Dream Team Tonic meetup in April. The 5th of April, Leeds. Come have a drink with us. Come and have a night out. Have some food. watch some football.